Okay, so we are at the beginning of week 4 and we are doing a shirt. We're going to do this one right here, D. It's just going to be a regular like flannel or plaid shirt. And I'm doing two. I'm doing one in test fabric, which is going to be this darker fabric. And then I'm going to be doing the final one in this color here. The Easter egg colors. I have all the pieces cut out for both shirts, and I'm going to pin them together. And I'm going to be going through and doing the first shirt completely in this test fabric so that I can test everything out before I go and move on to this fabric. So I will go ahead and pin everything together, and then I'll show you what it looks like from there. So I wanted to show you a little bit more about how I go through and do my stitches. With this one, I used a zigzag stitch. It's a bit of a fancier one, and it just goes back and forth and then kind of loops a little bit on the edges. And then what I did is I took my straight stitch and I just went around the edge, very edge of the zigzag stitch, so that it would kind of create its own finish. Because I don't have the machine, I need to go ahead and just stitch it up to finish it off, and I don't want it to fray and come apart through the stitching. So what I'm going to do is I can either leave it as it is, which I might end up doing anyways, or I can take it and kind of do a fabric glue in between the two right there so that they stick together, and that would also help to keep from fraying. But I'm going to see what I'm going to do with it by the time I'm done stitching it all up. But the pattern specifically said that it allowed in the sizing, as I was cutting it out, for 5/8 of an inch, which would come out to the third line here. The edge of my fabric would come out to the third line. And so what I did with the zigzag stitch is I made it 1/4 of an inch, so it was the end of the foot here. And then for the straight stitch, I just took it in to the first line right here, so that it was lined up like that instead of like that. And why I'm doing that instead of the whole 5/8 of an inch is because if I need to go in and size it differently to better fit my body, then I can go ahead and do that. And I've given myself a little bit of a leeway to work with here. So that's why I'm doing it this way. It'll give me a little bit over 1/4 of an inch extra to stitch up and maneuver the way I need to make it fit better on me. So right now I just have the front pieces and the back piece of the shirt sewn together, and then what I'm going to do next is I'm going to roll up the sleeves here, how they need to be rolled up, and stitch them up and then attach them to the spot on the shirt, both the front and the back, which is right here, and then the sleeves will be on the shirt. Alright, that's where I'm going next. I forgot one thing I wanted to also mention. The pattern says that you need an interfacing, which is a lining that will help to keep the fabric from being see-through and kind of makes it a little bit stiffer as well. I'm deciding not to do the interfacing because this fabric is dark and it's thicker than probably the regular fabric you would use for this type of shirt, unless you're doing a flannel shirt, of course. And so I'm not doing an interfacing. Instead, I'm just going to leave it as it is, and we'll use this side, and we'll fold this side over as well so that it can button up along itself in the center right here. What will happen is the shirt will come up like this, and the collar will be attached here to both the top of the, sorry, let's pull it down a little more. The collar will be attached up here, and it'll end up folding up like this. And then the buttons will go along the center here, so it'll be folded over about 1/4 of an inch or so. And then the bottoms, I could either leave it like this so that it was just a open button-up shirt, which I might do for this one, but with the pink and purple and other Easter colored shirt, we're going to put the sleeves on. And then the bottoms here, in this particular pattern, it has it so that this is not sewn together on the sides here, but that it is open, so it kind of flares out. I don't like that, so I stitched it up. So what I'm going to do when I'm done is I'm going to go through and I'm going to iron the edge of the shirt so that it forms more like that, and it'll be more of a body forming shirt that way too. And you can either go through and stitch over right like this right on the very edge with a straight stitch, just to kind of make sure that this kind of stays flat and keeps its form a little bit more. Another thing to notice is the patterns. Some of them have it so that the bust right here gets stitched in about 1 inch. I didn't want that for my pattern, so I didn't do that, because I want to be able to go back later and stitch it up if I need to, which would just require taking out a few stitches right here under where the armpit will be. And all you would do is you would fold it over itself like this kind of a thing, and then you would stitch over at an angle to cut it off at a point so that it would gather more like this for the bust area. Again, I'm not going to be doing that with this pattern because this pattern in particular does not have that. The other patterns do, but this one doesn't, and I didn't want that. So I'm going to go ahead and work on putting on the collar that'll attach at the top and putting on the sleeves that'll attach on the sides here. All I need to do now for the parts of the shirt is to go through and stitch up the bottom hem. So I folded it once and then I'm going to fold it over again. And what I'm going to do with this is I'm just going to do the double zigzag again and have it completely encase the folding so that I know it's secure. Okay, so there was one factor I didn't take into account beforehand, which was at the end of the shirt, each section has a bit of a curve. I forgot to sew this up, the hem up, before I sewed the shirt together on the sides. So it was a little bit harder to do the hem. And as you may have saw, that I was kind of pulling it out at a curve so that I could try and make that curve a little bit more apparent in the hem of the shirt. So now there's going to be a little bit of a curve to try and go with the flow and the curve of a person's body, particularly with their hips and their backside.